Hello everyone and welcome back to Quantuse. Today we are in conversation with Dr. Pragati Pradhan, who is a postdoctoral associate at the prestigious MIT, prior to which she was a postdoctoral scholar at the Pennsylvania State University. She obtained her Ph.D. from Raman Research Institute, University of North Bengal, during which time she also served as an assistant professor at the St. Joseph's College, Darjeeling. Her research interests mainly include accreting neutron stars and their transient behavior. She also works on stellar wind diagnostics of massive OB and WR stars with the Chandra HETG group at MIT. And today, we are going to listen to her journey to MIT. Welcome, Dr. Pragati.
Thank you, Tanya. Good to be here.
So, Dr. Pragati, how has your journey been from Darjeeling, Bengal, Pennsylvania, and then finally to the celebrated and distinguished MIT?
um, I would say it has rather been seamless. So I'll start with like my PhD days first. So I was I was working as an assistant professor at St. Joseph's College, Darjeeling, and during the same time I was also doing a PhD at Raman Research Institute with Dr. Biswajit Paul and Dr. Chandra Paul from University of North Bengal. So I was very lucky to have excellent supervisors for my PhD. So, like I mentioned, I first met Biswajit Paul when he was giving a lecture at the University of North Bengal, and that immediately intrigued my interest in pulsars and X-rays in general, X-ray astronomy in general. So then, with the help of my supervisor, Dr. Vikas Chandra Paul, we got in touch with Biswajit and we started working together. And after that, it was just like it was seamless. It just started to flow on, So I did my PhD. So that was a time where I was, you can imagine I was doing my PhD at the same time I was doing my, I was teaching somewhere. So that was a very challenging 7 years for me. And I completed that once the PhD was over. I then started applying for other postdoctoral because I didn't realize but in a matter of 5 to 7 years you get deep into research. So once you realize you develop your you identify your calling, and then you identify that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So once that was identified, I then started to look for avenues in which I can expand my research. For my PhD, I was mostly working on data analysis of pulsars, and then I realized that there are more to learn to astronomy than only data analysis. So therefore, thankfully, I made it through this position that was open at Penn State University. I was working with Dr. David Burrows there, and there the postdoc was slightly different than what I'm used to working. That means I had to like work on algorithm development and things like that. It was more of a software development kind of thing than, and not really the kind of usual science that I'm used to doing. So I spent my 2 years there, and it was a very fruitful experience for me as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been very lucky to have great supporting supervisors throughout my journey here. And once the work there at Penn State was over, then there was an opening at MIT, so I just applied there, like I applied to a couple of places, and then I just made it through here. I'm working again with another David, David Hunemoder, and his main work is mainly looking into so this is more data analysis, but for different kinds of stars. So we look into the high resolution spectrum and this kind of things here. And it's a great environment to be in. Like MIT, unfortunately, it's locked down here, so we don't have a lot of interactions on human level. But we do meet on videos, and we just make it work that way. So it's really a great opportunity. It's been great so far.
So you said that you've been teaching for 7 years as well with your
Yep.
PhD. So did you enjoy teaching, or you just
Uh,
wanted to rush through the teaching phase and jump to higher research like you are doing right now?
So I really enjoyed teaching. In fact, I started teaching before I joined my research. So I started teaching in 2010, right? That's when I talking about in general, like I had cleared my net at that time, national eligibility test, and then I knew I wanted to be a lecturer at that time, and I really wanted to work in the same college that I had studied. So St. Joseph's College is also my alma mater, so that's the college that I have and that I have, done my BSc in. So what happens is, you really want to give back to the community. Then you are at that stage where you really want to give back to the community. And I love the students out there. I mean, we are still in touch right now with them. So I like the energy. Like, and I felt the same way when I spoke to you guys. It's very like, you guys are young and very energetic, and I like that energy that comes from when you're trying to learn new things, when you're very curious, those kind of stuff. So I knew I wanted to do that. I really enjoyed teaching for the first, so I stayed there for 7 years, and then I really enjoyed teaching. But I realized sooner that once you start getting into research, you also want to really expand your knowledge about research in general. It was a difficult choice to make between teaching and research. But I realized that if I have to serve my community in that way, I can either serve by being there and teaching, teaching people how to do things, or the other way to also do that would be just live by example. For example, I can show them, like, you can get things done. Like, I have a very modest background. Like, I did my schooling in Darjeeling. I did my by BSc, my graduation in very nearby colleges. So I was not very. It's not an Ivy League kind of schooling. The bachelor's or masters that I did in. But like, I just wanted to let the students, especially of the community, know that it is possible. Especially people who are, who are coming from a very modest background, to let them know that it is indeed possible to get things done. So that is the reason I tell myself that this is a choice that had to be made. It was a tough
Well,
one
you
though.
definitely are setting goals, and you definitely are inspiring many students, I'm sure. So postdoctoral is also a kind of a job you do, right?
Mhm.
And in every job, you like some aspect of it and you dislike some aspect of it. So can you please elaborate on that?
Okay, so one thing I really like about being, a researcher, or in general, in case of postdoc, you can, like, what I say, you can take up different projects. Like, you don't have to limit yourself to a certain project. Like I mentioned, I was working on a different thing when I did my PhD, and then I went on to do something similar, but work on calibration, instrumentation, and things like software and things like that. And the last thing to do was, right now I'm working on a different kind of science, a different kind of group, and different kind of instrument. So it's really the flexibility of it that I really like. Having said that, again, the limitation of really being a postdoc is that the you are like you have the job for a couple of years. You have it for maybe 2 to 3 years, and then you have to move on to find another job. How do I say, the instability of the job is what really bothers me and most of the postdocs, I'm sure. So that's what I would say as a negative point for being a postdoc or a researcher in general. Yeah.
Right. One thing we know that astronomy and mathematics go hand in hand.
Mhm.
So, if a student is aiming towards astronomy, what all training he should have other than mathematics, or any other specific training they should have if they are trying to pursue a career in astronomy?
Mhm. So yeah, that's a good question. I would think if we talk about like the skills that is required for astronomy now, would be heavily based on understanding the nitty-gritties of scripting, for example. So you would need to have a good handle on maybe programming, for that matter. You would need to have a good handle on computers in general and how to use them. So this is one thing that really the field is proceeding towards. And having said that, you like there are different kinds. When we're talking about astrophysics, there are different kinds. Like I work mostly on data analysis. That is, I have my hands on, I work on data. I just obtain data. I do a lot of reductions and processing and things like that. So I very much work with that. But there are other kinds of astrophysicists, for example, who work only on developing a theory behind what we see. So if you're interested in in theoretical astronomy, for example, then you would have to have your physics correct. That's what I would say. Like read textbooks. And we really have a lot of great astrophysicists from our era, like from India itself, like your Shubramaniam Chandrasekhar, for example, right? He got a Nobel Prize um, for his work on black holes and mass limits, so things like that. So you have to really get yourself acquainted with the basic physics of astrophysics. And if you want to be a data analyst, I would say you'd really have to get a good understanding of how scripting, and they overlap. So you can't always say, okay, I want to be a theoretical physicist and my focus is only on theory and I'm not going to touch a computer in my life. So it doesn't work that way. So you'll have to also get some part of familiarize yourself with some aspects of how to get your hands dirty on data. And being a data analyst, you should also understand at least how this kind of theoretical the recent advancements in theoretical physics also come up. So I would say, like, depend you have a main focus on something, but you should also keep yourself acquainted with a lot of other things, and mathematics,
Uh,
of course.
say I have an expertise in some other subject, let's say chemistry or biology, can I still hope for a position or hope for something that might hold for me in astronomy or astrophysics for that matter?
Absolutely, it will. So, like, what I do is I work on, like I mentioned, I work on high resolution spectroscopy. And to just explain that a bit further, I work on atomic lines, for example. So what we do is we see this kind of emission that is happening in these kind of stars. So what you do is, in order to capture this emission, you need to understand the physics behind why these emissions occur, for example. So chemistry definitely would be very useful in understanding the transitions, for example, between different levels that really happen in what kind of in what kind of environment, for example, density, temperature, those kind of things. And astrobiology in general is a very it's been an upcoming field for a couple of years. So like, people are very interested in what is the if is there life on any other planet, for example, or things like that. So I would definitely say interdisciplinary approach is looks like the future of research in general. And definitely, if you do have interest in chemistry or biology, I would say you are very much open to the community. Mm.
Let's say I'm majoring in astronomy or astrophysics.
Mhm.
After that, what all institutes can I apply to in India or abroad? Any institute that are offering programs for higher studies?
Mhm. So there are a lot of elite institutes in India as well. So you have many IITs, for example. So what I would suggest is, depending on what you would like. For example, I knew I wanted to work on pulsars, and knew I wanted to work on X-ray astronomy. So you first identify what are different groups that work on this. For example, for X-ray astronomy and pulsars, you have Raman Research Institute, which is a great place to work. And you have the IISC just next to Raman Research Institute. And then you have TIFR, you have the one in Kolkata, I'm forgetting, SINP, yeah, right? So these are the kind of institutes that really offer services and offer help in having a person just get some experience in research. For example, they have this some, I don't know how active that is, but you have the summer research programs right now. So you can also, like, enroll in some of them, write to the PIs, the people, professors who work there, and they're pretty responsive, I would say. So having, you just have to expand your basis and just find a good match for you based on what you would like. That is if you don't have any constraint, but if you have some constraints, then you can clearly like mark your geographical location, for example, and find good institutes there, and then see if you like it, and if you do, then you can take it further, I would say. And in US specifically, I would say there are plenty of institutes that work on that have astrophysics in general. But when we are talking about astrophysics, we also have to like first identify what areas you want to work on, because like for example, planetary science is a big thing that is coming up, because with the launch of a new satellite tests and all those stuff. Because of that, you have a lot of opening for this kind of areas. So I would say first research on the current the current market of research, I would say loosely. That is, find out what is the likely case where the research is going to boom in the next few years. And once you identify, I mean, you can't always be 100% correct, but you can get an estimate of what you think is happening in the next few years. And once you identify that, if it aligns with your interest, then start researching on what the kind of institutes. And if you club that with a geographical location, you have a handful of institutes. So that's, I think, a way to go.
You made your way to MIT. So I would like to ask, what are the factors that affect, or I would say, what are the essentials that are required to make my way to a postdoctorate position in a prestigious institute or a big research group, I would say?
So definitely a PhD. So you should have a very good handle on your PhD work, and I'm sure most of us do anyway. So once you have a good handle on your PhD work, you just look for you identify, like the kind of job hunting that was done for for the PhD program. You can also look for different groups, and then just identify them and just write to them, like cold email some of them, like just say if there is an opening. Especially right now in this era, there are the advertisements and the hirings are probably a little bit shaken right now. But what you can do right now is you can just identify certain groups, write them an email. And I think depends on what selection criteria each group has, but it will really help to have a couple of publications, especially at when you are in your PhD. So it would help to have papers published. And the other factor really, which is very important, is to have your reference letters correct. So these are the practical things that you would need. And you would need a good letter, for example. Like for example, if somebody's writing a reference letter to Europe, then you would have a certain standard to write it in US versus India. So these are the kind of things you'd need a good research statement. That means what is the plan that you want to do, whether or not you actually when you're being hired for a postdoc, you are being hired for a particular project already in mind, but you will have your own research, some outline of the research that you want to do as well. So just take care of that as well. So these are the practical things that you need to identify. And also, like from a personal point of view, I think it is very important these days to be like I said, to be positive, to be motivated, and also sometimes just be resilient, because I think that also helps a lot in situations.
Now I'll move on to some lighter questions. So, Dr. Pragati, how's life at MIT?
It was great just before Corona struck down. So it's really not very different from a normal postdoc in India in terms of your everyday routine. So you just wake up in the morning, go to work, and then you have your own work going on. One thing that is very different here at MIT is, like, because you have the best minds, of course, you get to interact with a lot of people, and you get to interact with a lot of people. And even the lab that I work in, there is a mandatory 1 hour lunch break. So it's I mean, in India we do that, but it's not a very common concept in the US, because people just have their lunch and other stuffs on the desk. They just work, and then it's that kind of culture here. So I really liked that when I was at MIT. You can just you can meet somebody. It's flexible. First of all, like, it's not that you have to reach there at 7:30 or 8, and people begin their days very early here in the US. So you can reach at a certain time, and then you can also like work with them, and also have very casual interactions with them, throughout lunch, for example. So that has been a very great experience. And also for me, coming from India, it is a kind of there are cultural differences between, of course, between India and any other country for that matter. So there were a lot of cultural differences between India and US, for example. So I would say it's a fun thing to learn. Yeah.
You said you have mandatory 1 hour lunch breaks. That's great. But apart from talking about the research stuff, do you have an active social life? Do you get time for a social life?
Absolutely. You just make time for it. so I have a certain rule. For example, I try not to work on Friday nights unless there is a deadline. So I take a clean break on Friday night. So that means like, so typically here in the US, you have something called the happy hours. So what you do is, on Friday evening, you just get together with your colleagues, or your mostly colleagues, and then over a couple of beers or whatever, you just unwind, for an hour or so, and then you go back home. So after happy hour, I just don't work. Friday night I don't work, and Saturday I take a clean break. But come Sunday, I have to, like, start thinking about what has to be done on Monday and things like that. But of course, unless there's a deadline, then there is no weekend. But otherwise, I think it's really important to have your work balance as well. So Friday nights and Saturdays are a total off for me.
Nice. So I would take a last question now. Just I want you to give a message to our viewers, all of the students who are watching this show. How can they stay motivated and achieve great things in life like you did?
So I would say company really matters. So you should surround yourself with people who have similar interests that you do, who have, surround yourself with positive people who will with whom you can share your dreams, for example, and whom you can listen to about, what you want to do in life, for example, and take their opinion. Yeah, like, and friends are the best way to do it, because like especially in India, we have a different kind of connection with our parents, right? So and contemporaries, your batchmates, or people of your age, you pick your company very wisely, because that's really a make or break here. So you should also be, strive to be the positive influence on somebody else as well. So that's one thing that is really to do. And if you are not feeling like, up for certain, and there'll be times when you are down, and when you are, you find yourself demotivated, you should totally feel free to talk to somebody, reach out to somebody with whom, who will be able to really get you through that. And when time comes, you should also be able to be that person. So I would say community support in that sense. You should have a lot of community support. And definitely this is apart from, having your own character, like, built in such a way that you are motivated, you are hardworking, you are resilient, and you are smart in that sense, right? You should take smart decisions. And besides all this, you should really have good company and keep yourself motivated, and maybe motivate others as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pragati. You can contact Dr. Pragati if you have any questions or leave your queries in the comment section below. Thank you so much, Dr. Pragati. It was a wonderful talk with you.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and it was great to have you guys too.